Yeah? All right, so I've been told to introduce this next speaker as a very nice human person. So give a huge round of applause for Mykola Siusko with Privacy as a Lifestyle.
Yeah, so generally speaking, we'll talk more about privacy and security because I think those topics are deeply connected, and if we would understand each other better, we would understand how to serve the people who are at high risk lacking privacy right now at the moment. I'm Mykola Siusko. I am a core contributor to Web3 Privacy Now and a softcore contributor to NIM. But this presentation is not about myself, and I was sitting there listening to the previous speech, and then I made this spoiler alert. It was a slide somewhere down the rabbit hole of my presentation, but it's a finding of my previous year where I was analyzing 400 projects delivering privacy in the Web3 space. 99 of them has no security audits, so basically you as a person, you need to trust them for their words, for their marketing words, that they deliver privacy for real. And then I was asking myself, will I be the one who will give away my life to those projects just because they say they are private? And it's a big danger here. It leads to Ethereum Foundation grant that we are doing right now, but I'm going a bit ahead. And sometimes we forget what's at stake. When we live in fancy towns like Barcelona, New York, London, when we are in the middle of a hyper-capitalist society, we forget about the people who are living in the non-democratic countries. And I suggest you to go to the democratic countries index, global, and you would see that around 20–30% of the world countries lack democratic, what you can say, human rights. So you can be prosecuted or even killed in Iran if you leak your privacy, or if you would share something different than the general government agenda. And that's what at stake when people are doing security audits. But let's get a bit back clicker is working. 1 second. Yeah, cool. So generally speaking, what I'm trying to say, this talk will be a little philosophical, and I think that privacy could really help us to understand who we are, what kind of life we live, and why do we exist in the Web3 sphere. And I want to remind you that we still live in a post-COVID times, and personally, myself, I'm bizarre when people are talking about the metaverse, the future, the decentralized identity, and they forget about the big alienation that we experienced several years ago. So then, don't be surprised that the internet, whether it's Web 2 or Web 3, still feels like alienated space, as a lonely space, because you are curated by algorithms, and there's not many surprises. And here's just the footprint of Spain. And also there's a war here in Europe, not far away, just 3 hours. And I'm saying this is Ukrainian. And for me, that's the moment we should care about privacy, about security, about human rights, about human decency. And also, what we're forgetting, that's the word of the last year by Collins, is this constant state of crisis. We as human beings, we like to dream about flashy new technologies, flashy innovations, lots of buzzwords in Web3 that will come and save us. Maybe that ultimate ZKVM that will bring much of scalability. And then I'm saying, let's remind ourselves where we are, what kind of life we live, and what kind of life other people live. And this talk is dedicated to a being, I don't know, Ukrainian expat who's living in Barcelona, who is married to Catalan girl, blah, 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 who has some sort of income, and here's the stuff for you. How they could track me? No. So maybe we could reframe relations. And that's where privacy is this kind of powerful sword. Or what they're doing right now with the marketing agencies and the Google and Meta, they're trying to crack biases. They call it biases. And they call it biases. And these are the flows of human psychology, so they could sell stuff you don't need. And basically, they erode you from this like COVID trauma, war trauma, relation trauma to hyper-consumerism. And I guess, again, if we do care about privacy, we could dodge these attacks, we could create much more meaningful communities, first of all. And we strive for them here. But when we talk about privacy in Web3, and if you go with a small community of privacy, you would see they're hyper-paranoid. Big Brother is watching us, regulators are following us, they're fighting with us, and I'm saying that fear-based communication is not something that bonding us, or it could bond us for the conference of 50 people. But then the question is like how to scale it, how to make it really bigger and not be drowned into this kind of like, oh, let's, I don't know, let's shit on Binance and go full on dark fi, for example. And my thing is, as a human person, I would love more people to go for privacy. I don't want to be a privileged class of technical people who could attest if the protocol is private, who could read the documentation, who could understand how to check legitimacy of the team. And if team is unknown, maybe they could trace a transaction. That's a pretty privileged position they're existing right now. But then the Web3 scalability is there. It's when your privacy tool has been used by millions and millions and millions. And in this sense, how to claim that the privacy will be a central point of the future internet is super simple. Your identity, you will be owner of your identity, which means it will be private. And then you would build the relations with the protocols, with the tools, what things you want to share. It's like attending this conference. I wrote to my friend, like, hey, do you want a ticket as a speaker? I have +1. He said, yeah, of course. And I'm like, oh, you need to provide me your full name and email. And I'm like, how would we do it? So we fake him a name, and he doesn't want to be doxxed. He doesn't want to share his identity. Why should he? And in this sense, again, privacy in relation with your identity and your relations with other ecosystem applications, protocols, is a good tool to navigate the meaningful questions. Why do we do what we do? And that's 100% private. But it's interesting that humans are complex creatures. Oh, I know these guys. They were standing in a queue with me. And I want to always get back to human drama. And on Monday, we had the hottest day ever on Earth. And the average temperature, lots of the media wrote about it, and it's a death sentence, and people will die, whatever, whatever. And that's basically, again, paranoia of the world we live in. And I want to understand culturally how we could be more empowered instead of disconnected by, oh, I'm vegan and I'm not, I'm for Monero and I'm for Zcash, and I'm for Solana and I'm for Ethereum. This polarization doesn't help. And then I will tell you one good example of the community that strive for connectivity, for co-creation, but sometimes they could be labeled as criminals. And here I want to change this notion that privacy is for criminals. And I'm a part of a small P2P community. I'm not putting a name here, that preserving the legacy of the cinema. What they're doing basically, they're sharing obscure movies, for example, from Thailand, and they are making subtitles so more global audience could read them. And how they build the social system, basically, in order for you to download something, you need to share something. So basically, they put the gigabytes that you download and share within the ratio, and then if you contribute to the system, if you help system to be sustained by downloading, making subtitles, supporting the project, then you will have bigger opportunities for collaboration. And this is a healthy community. There could be fights between, oh, I love this director, that director, but what they do, they preserve the culture. But by, I don't know, there's no mainstream movies, but some, by some IP owners that would be seen as kind of like, oh, criminals, pirates. But for society, for us, they are doing super great job. And to a degree that later some directors went there and said, we prefer to share with you those movies because we know you care. And the privacy works the same way. So what we're doing right now, we're trying to build an ecosystem that will help privacy make mainstream and find the way that people could, for example, if there are 400 projects in the market claiming they're private, have some sort of ICL to bid here, there, kind of like L2bid, but for privacy, one person could attest the privacy feature of every solution. And fun fact, I asked about 100 people doing privacy services about how a non-techie could go and check if your privacy claims are legit. And I received 80 different answers, meaning that basically market leaders, maybe they are okay with go and read the docs, but read the docs is not the same as understand the docs. And then if there's no security audits, like we were seeing here, like, okay, we analyze a smart contract, but how it's related with data leakage. How it's related if your RPC leaks the data, or your wallets connect your personal data, or your privacy policy is false. So what we are trying to do here as well with security companies, we try to influence, so apart from their security audits, they will have also privacy security audits. When they will really have a new service, when they analyze how data is leaked here and there on all the entry points, what data is collected, how is it compromises one's privacy, and what are the trade-offs. So then, when you publish report, it will be much more valuable to the people and not just claiming, oh, my smart contract is legit, no one could steal the money. But it's not about stolen money. The question is life itself. And I believe that the private internet, where we are going, should be a place for a really diverse crowd and really different people. Like, for example, I was talking with our Vietnamese colleagues and asking them, who needs privacy in Vietnam? And Web3 native person said, government. I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. So there are markets when trust in government is so big that those tools could empower state agents. Like, for example, in NIM case, how NIM appeared, it's because there was a scandal with NSA spying on Merkel, and European government decided to give away a research grant to find a solution that will be a bit more powerful than Tor and will protect for global adversaries. But not everyone need those powerful privacy tools. Like, for example, someone in Turkey would need just a VPN to access the gated media resources. And that's how this person's privacy journey would end. And for me and for us, the privacy should be super contextual. For someone, it's a small use case, and 90% of the life would be kind of like non-private at all. For others, if they're at high-risk category, like journalists, for example, working and sharing the media through WikiLeaks, that's crucial. And thumbs up to a team at EHDM. It's like kids of, I don't know, 17-year-old who created a new WikiLeaks there during a hackathon. And I was pleasantly surprised that those kids, they care about privacy. And also what's important here when we talk about privacy, I found a super cool book in Berlin recently that sometimes, and I'm in all these conversations about the future of internet, and people talk about, oh, we need to protect ourselves. And then I'm saying, but for example, in Ethiopia, and I'm not sure if JJ is here, it's the guy behind the Entropy team, what they're doing, they are taking care of the privacy of Ethiopian minority, Tigrayans, and they don't have any internet. They have an internet, they kind of put a stick, connect to the mobile phone, try to reach any network like that in the sky. Because there's a problem of connectivity, and lots of people don't have notebooks. And suddenly, when you develop a privacy solution, you would be terrified in Latin America, oh, almost like penetration of notebooks is really small. So then whom you serve? You serve this privileged techie class of nerds, or you serve the people? If they're the people, it's interesting that the solutions should be different, they should be super simplified, and also they have different relations with time, community, wealth, and everything like that. And this really, if you apply this to privacy, you suddenly understand that it really encompasses all the different audiences, and we could build much more powerful Web3 tooling, because Web3 should be kind of better than Web2, also on a cultural level. And what I'm trying to say that we are going to super complex system of privacy when we won't have one tool, but we will have a privacy stack. And then thinking as a privacy stack is really cool for your presence in Web3. Because, for example, in our GitHub, we collected 400 projects, and there are 15 categories, from DeFi to decentralized identity, storage, decentralized storage, and stuff like that. But then, the privacy stack is not still there, but I want to imagine it. I want to figure out how it would even look alike. Because if you use 90% of the privacy stack, but you leak all your data within 10%, it doesn't work. It compromises your privacy, your freedom, your life. And then it could lead to a death scenario. And in this sense, it's gross. I Google it, and Google is saying, hey, these are the journalists who had been killed in Mexico. And I was talking to our Mexican CM, community manager, like, hey, let's talk about local use cases on privacy. Because I'm from Europe, I have a Western gaze, tell me about your cases. And he's saying, journalists. I'm like, why? Because when they do investigative journalists and they serve to society, the narcos and the government and the army are threatening them to a degree of Google is saying, here are the people who had been killed. And I was searching for like killed journalists in Mexico. And generally speaking, that's the cost of privacy. When Vitalik is saying that we should really solve the privacy issue, sometimes people don't understand that that's the point. It's not about Tornado Cash hiding the sources when you support communities like Ukrainian fundraisers for humanitarian cause. It's much more than that. For example, and I was doing this in infographics for some time, the dimensions could be political, economical, and ethical. And you as a person, you could choose an ethical reason to care for privacy. Maybe because you would support a certain Iranian community. There are lots of people like in Ethereum who are Iranians and they try to understand how to support Iranian community, or how to support Kurdistan community, or how to support other people like indigenous people in Brazil. Super interesting cause, and then you would understand that tooling is not there. So it's an interesting challenge for lots of ecosystem to, or like Ethereum Foundation, saying we need to have an argument, how you would communicate with those people. Like if someone is saying, yeah, this North Korea hackers, they're the criminals, they abuse your privacy tools. You need to have a powerful counter-argument, because then you will lose those communication battle. And I would rather say, go for sensitive audiences like young girls who are stalked online right now, who need an extra protection. I build my relations with my daughter from understanding that she doesn't want to show her photos on the internet. She hates when we, parents, upload her photo without her consent. And we do parents abuse kids right on themselves, basically. And it took me years to understand. I thought it was a joke, but then that's the audiences we should take care about. And what's interesting that if you go beyond your belief, maybe you're agnostic, maybe you believe in Vitalik, but then there are other people like religious minorities that are threatened. They could use your Web3 tools. It's interesting that not just Gen Z people, not just youngster could use fancy NFTs, but also lots of sensitive audiences, like maybe like families with cross-border ties. Like for example, lots of Ukrainian kids are detained in Russia, and then if they ride home, their communication could be traced, and it's big risk for them. And at the same time, here's the point of where privacy is super cool. Like in Russia, lots of researchers want to move to Oxford or to Cambridge or to other Western universities to continue their research. And maybe those people are researching cancer cure. Maybe they're researching the big cure for the challenges of our society, but they need to have a private messenger, private document tool for transferring, and so they cannot be traced. And these are the tangible, practical use cases for privacy. And again, returning to security audits are not there. So basically, they don't have a security stack connected with the privacy stack. And okay, I have 20 seconds and I will finish. So I know that I was using my cat a lot in this talk, and without her proper consent, so you can help Ukrainian animal rights saving animals, and also you will have a thumbs up for a cyber feminist who wrote a Cyber Manifesto, a wonderful book that could really help you to navigate what does it mean to live in the world of human/technology. And I dedicate it to all the non-humans in the world, because sometimes when we think about privacy, sometimes when we think about security, we look down only on ourselves. Sometimes there are too many white people in the room, too many male men, and in this sense, they repeat the same pattern on how they scale privacy, and it lacks a lot of fluidity there in terms of diversity and inclusion. And I need to, where are those questions I need to check, and we'll be like, oh, there are lots of questions, I will answer them all. But I will just summarize here several things. Privacy is bigger than you think. It's not just about transactional privacy. Transactional privacy is just the same use cases as token or crypto is just one use case for blockchain. Second, there are also sensitive audiences. So when you develop privacy solutions, you can have a better conversation with whatever you're talking, media, VCs, partners, team members, etc. Third, security auditing companies should try and provide an extra service for privacy solutions. It's a new market, it's a good market. You could really empower them, and then you can have tangible use cases like how you give more privacy to the sensitive audiences. And the last one, it would be nice to have if the privacy players would really collaborate with each other, like recently Aztec with NIM integrated and have better privacy and not compete with each other. It's so boring to see those internal competitions, especially when people are saying, oh, we hate each other. You're on the same boat. You're going the same human rights directions. If not you, whom else? Thanks a lot. And questions from here and some questions from the internet. Thanks. We have a microphone here. Maybe someone wants to give me a spicy comment. There's.
Can you just give it?
Oh.
Hello?
Yeah. I hear.
Oh, it's working. Okay. Can you give us a quick summary of why it's not good to use things like Telegram and Signal?
First of all, I think so I used to work with marketing, and I know that what marketing is doing with your brain, they trick your perception of the tooling. So basically, when Telegram is saying we are a private messenger, that's not true. You need to turn on the private messaging. So basically, they trick so lots of people think that it's a private messenger, although they don't use the private features. I would also say it's a bit towards Zcash, because in the Web3, we have the same feature. Like, for example, Nighthawk wallet within the Zcash ecosystem, privacy by default. There's no button you need to press, private or not transaction. And I like this approach. In Zcash, you can choose whenever you have a private transaction or not. And many people, they're not lazy. They're just not technically savvy to pay attention because they're bombarded of all this messaging. They don't have time to spend to understand how really privacy works with this specific application. What are the limitations of privacy? Where privacy, for example, in Telegram is exposed instead of being preserved. And what's important here, the application itself doesn't show much of effort to care about your privacy. And I'm bothered this as Ukrainian, because Ukrainians leak so many data right now, like wow, to that specific tool, without a proper understanding, like apart from encryption, how this information is used by third parties. And they could intercept that content super easy. And second tool was WhatsApp or what? Telegram, Signal. So with Signal, I would rather say this notion that what bothers me with Signal is that majority of privacy tooling, they lack a proper business model. Signal is donation-based, and majority of small Web3 also tooling are donation-based, which means their business model is not sustainable. So Signal is private right now because they are not owned by corporations, and basically they're using progressive encryption, and they encrypt everyone. There's no optional privacy. But what will happen if those big donors would go away? And there will be, they won't have money to sustain the ecosystem. So in this sense, what matters is to not just think about privacy features as of now, but what will happen like in the future, especially when you transfer all your communication with Signal. I know that Ukrainian army uses Signal as a by default tool as opposed to everyone else. They don't even use, that's funny, WhatsApp has been engineered in Ukraine and was acquired by Meta. And I guess one good feature to follow, to understand if a service is private or not, if human rights organizations and journalists are using it. Why? Because journalists are at high risk around the world, especially when they do investigative journalism and they send sensitive data and they communicate kind of anonymously in this sense. And it's a good just signal what professionals are using. And human rights organizations, sometimes they work with the sensitive groups. Like, for example, I was talking with Alona from Ukraine DAO, and we were talking with the people from Iran DAO. And they were setting organization, decentralized, and I'm like saying, guys, if you open a group in Signal, and you invite every member there, being someone, let's say an agent of Iranian government, would be there, he would dox all of you, because he will be inside of your group. So tooling is just the one thing. How you use tooling, whom you invite in those groups, how you name your nickname, but then you expose your phone number. And that's what is a weak link of Signal. You still need to expose your phone number. And not many people are that savvy, because they're just not that tech savvy. They just use this one phone number that has all the data footprint apart from the internet. So the usage and the culture of privacy, that's what we're trying to build actually with Web3, to showing that apart from saying, yeah, this tool is private, no, let's figure out how we use it, why we use it, and when privacy ends. Especially with the tools like Railgun, we were in talks like, if you add ZK sync and you have this complex, or 1inch, and you have this complex DeFi structure, there should be a moment when you share the data with a third party and it leaked. Maybe in your closed system, there's a private transaction here and there, but then those transactions, you could lead to another transaction, and then they're exposed. So you need to create, we as a community, we need to create guides, videos, explainers, and we are doing this a bit, how privacy could work as a culture and simplify the same simple language. Like not many buzzwords. Buzzwords are for technical people. Yeah? Thanks a lot. Yes, we have a new speaker for developer report and stuff like that. Thank you very much.